So today I'll be reading the compatibility. Maybe I'll read with identification. No, I'm gonna start with compatibility of type 7 with other types. I am a type 8 for reading 7, so I am, reading this. I also have decided I don't think I will be doing more types after this one, at least not for a while. Maybe in future I'll go back to this, but I'm starting to get a little burnout by doing all of this ones. But I started, so I kind of like want to conclude it because it's been pretty good for me to just look at myself. It's been a self-improvement tool, to just look at like generalizations that are made for these types. So I'm gonna start with the type 1. Type 7, type 1. So Enneagram type 1, the reformer, Enneagram type 7, the enthusiast. What each type brings to the relationship. Enneagram 1s and 7s have a particular complementary and reciprocal relationship. They are opposites who can either bring something either to the other person, thereby helping both achieve new growth, or, as we'll see, they can drive each other further apart by playing on each other's weaknesses, whether consciously or not. Ones bring conscientiousness, orderliness, good work habits, methodical attention to detail, and a pleasure in maintaining excellence and high standards. Sevens bring spontaneity, high energy, curiosity, and orientation towards fun and adventure, the desire to try new things, and the ability to not get hung up get you hung up with getting everything done perfectly. Both types can be initiators and planners, future-oriented and idealistic, although sevens tend to prefer having multiple options and to keep plans loose enough that they can be changed as needed. They bring freedom and spontaneity. Ones are more methodical and help sevens stay on track. They resist getting distracted by too many options and excel at following through their plans. So out of these two, like naturally type 7 is the one I relate to the most. But I will say that there are some things about type 1 that I relate to, like not right now, but in the past, the thing about them, the pleasure in maintaining excellence and high standards. Like this was very much me when I was younger, when I was like in middle school and high school. I was very oriented to kind of like being at the very top all the time. It was kind of like a problem, I got, too hung up on my perfectionism over, things that they didn't work out as well as I could because I have ADHD. So I had some issues here and there academically. I always was at the top, but I could have been even more at the top if I had if some things had if I couldn't be on medication because I'm bipolar, so I can take amphetamines, but if I had some, I don't know, like I had tried to make more of a I knew that there was something there, because for the longest time, like I was like, this is just normal me, this is just how things work. Yeah, I didn't know that there was like a better way of like doing things. Maybe better, I don't know if like that's the word, better, but there's like a more effective way. Yeah, more effective, that's better. Sevens often offer ones a sense of excitement as a life as a source of pleasure and enjoyment. Ones offer sevens a sense of purpose and idealism, as well as direction and the feeling that life is noble and meaningful. Sevens keep one's spirits up, refreshing their idealism while preventing the relationship from becoming too heavy. I think that there's another way in which when I was younger, I think the too heavy part used to be very very prevalent on the way I did things. Everything was too heavy, and as a consequence, it was like living was way more of a struggle than right now, where things are lighter and I am more free to just come and go as I please without being kind of like burdened by certain tasks and activities that I have to do. The ones help steady sevens, keeping them working systematically and consistently toward goals. Sevens appreciate the one's consistency and reliability and are glad to have someone who can attend to details. Yeah, it's interesting because I went from being very detail oriented to being more like, I don't know, what's the opposite of detail oriented? Generality oriented. It's not that I'm half-assing things necessarily, it's just that I'm kind of exactly as I already said, like I'm not hung up on the details of what certain things mean and how I can and how yeah, exactly, I'm not hung up I'm not being too hung up on certain details. And I try my best, I do what I can, but if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out and I move on to the next thing. Sevens appreciate the details. These two types can be highly supportive of each other as long as their ultimate values are congruent and as long as they are both working for the same fundamental things in life. This tends to be a stimulating relationship for both. They stretch each other, and are fascinated and challenged by their differences. So potential trouble spots or issues. As stress increases, one become increasingly critical, judgmental, inflexible, insistent that things be done only one way, the right way, their way. They inevitably begin to see sevens as undisciplined and inefficient, self-centered and childish. Ones feel that sevens are scared and tend to fool around too much, overextending resources and overbooking themselves and promising too much to too many people. The promising too much to too many people I don't really relate to, but the overextending oneself, and just indulging a little bit, like I that one, I relate. On the other hand, okay. Ones also often feel that sevens are unfocused and scared simply to annoy them and to get back at them passive aggressively without seeming to be hostile or fighting themselves. On the other hand, sevens tend to see lower functioning ones as too prissy and perfectionistic and ultimately as someone who needs to be kicked in the pants to loosen up a bit. Conflicts between these two types are also often focused on organization and financial matters, with ones feeling that sevens are profligate and wasteful, while sevens feel that ones are too tight-fisted and have no vision or pizzazz. I like to think that I'm somewhere in between, like I'm balanced. I'm not spending too much, I'm not overextending myself, I'm not, I'm just kind of like just what I kind of like need to survive, but like also to enjoy myself. Also, I think that this whole thing, I've been kind of like thinking about this, and I'm like, I feel like sometimes when I meet with people and they have any issues, one of my tendencies is to just kind of like walk away, and let them do the bullshit, and then after the bullshit is passed, then I come back. And I feel like this might be more of a quiet thing, kind of like isolating themselves. I'm not even like isolating myself from the world, just from like that specific individual. I also like I have funny they're using the word pizzazz. I don't see it used often. Sevens eventually tire of one's continual criticism and dissatisfaction with them, pursuing other options in the relationship becomes more and more attractive since sevens deeply resist feeling trapped or being in situations that continually produce unhappiness. Yes, I do relate to this. Unfortunately, low functioning ones continually contribute to this. If matters continue to deteriorate, one who lose respect for sevens will become increasingly pushy and demanding with loose, vulgar tone. One finds it extremely embarrassing to be around and can become disillusioned and depressed, withdrawing emotional connection from sevens. Thus, a disdainful contempt to the other enter the picture from both sides, making reconciliation even more difficult. Once criticized sevens for a while, then silently give up on that until some event spells the final blow to the relationship. Okay, so that is type 1. Let's go for type 2. This initial types, so like 9, 1, and 2, like they're very much not like me, I don't relate to them. Specifically, there's like one thing or another, so I don't expect to, have too much enlightenment here. I'm seeing more, seeing more of what I already know about the 7 is pretty much what I'm expecting. So Enneagram type 2, the helper, Enneagram type 2, type 7, enthusiast. What each type brings to the relationship. In many ways, both of these types can look alike. Both Enneagram 2s and 7s can be outgoing, friendly, funny, high energy people and enjoyable company. They want others to be happy and to have a good time. And both types tend to interpret things, including setbacks, in a positive way, always looking for the silver lining or the blessing in a seeming disaster. Both types are engaged in spontaneous and love the good things in life. In addition, Jews bring that depth of feeling and concern for the welfare of others into the mix. Jews admire nerve and gusto which the sevens launch ahead in life, making every day an unpredictable adventure. I relate to this part, like wanting to make every day an unpredictable adventure. I unfortunately cannot make it as unpredictable and adventurous as I possibly can because number one, I've been feeling kind of like weak lately, so I have to be careful with what I'm spending my energy, and also because of like some semi-recent situations that happen, I'm kind of like under observation. I'm not really allowed to kind of like go out as often as I would want. nature. Sevens bring high energy and a quick mind that sees possibilities and generates ideas faster they can be acted on. There is a kind of mental electricity and excitement that sevens generate. The sheer possibility that Jews find intoxicating not only for themselves and for those they want to share the excitement with. The seven helps the Jew to remember to do nice things for themselves on a regular basis. They remind Jews that if they are not taking care of their own health and fulfillment, they will not really be able to be helpful to others. On the other hand, healthy sevens feel that their emotional and physical needs are largely met by a healthy Jew. The Jew helps the seven feel relaxed and fulfilled, reducing the temptation to wander. Further, both Jews and sevens in every list. Okay, I'm just reading. That is interesting to me, like reducing the temptation to wander. So I guess what they're saying is that like if I am if I find kind of like a harbor, an anchor, I'm still going to be energetic and outgoing and doing the things I want to do, but it will, like be a little reduced, but like not in a bad way, I guess. Just I have to stay here long enough for me to, do things, to attend to my responsibilities. Further, both Jews and sevens are idealistic. I don't really call myself idealistic, so that's pretty much where I diverge from seven, among other things. But Jews can more easily and consistently translate these impulse into altruistic action. This inspires the seven, who also enjoy sharing their abundance with others. Together, they can be remarkably generous and thoughtful as a couple. The two and seven combination can have a positive effect on people that is virtually unmatched by any other couple. They can be warm, welcoming, and generous, making others feel loved and invited to the party. That is one of those things that like I'm not against that, but like it's not really a priority. It's not really something I kind of like I feel very keen on. Like it's just like a thing. I'm like, okay, whatever. Potential trouble spots or issues. In time, Jews feel they can have enough intimacy, and they usually try to find ways to be closer to the seven. They like to stay at home and go on quiet walks together, cook, talk about settling down and having family. Sevens, on the other hand, generally find the idea of settling down and limiting their options to be nowhere nearly as attractive to them. Sevens are capable of long-term commitments, but they tend not to be eager to get into them. As a result of these signals, the two may start to hover and become more intrusive, pulling the reins on the seven, insisting that they have more quality time together. Sevens can easily feel trapped by this maneuver, and they may begin to lose interest in the two, feeling that the relationship has gone stale, rather than realizing their own anxiety over the potential closing of options. Jews will increasingly want to get serious about relationship, just as sevens begins to feel bored or that the relationship has gone heavy and fulfilling. Jews can thus begin to see the seven as untrustworthy, a playboy or playgirl, who is selfishly leading them on with no intention of tying the knot. Yeah, I feel like this is how a lot of people feel about me, because I do not have an interest of tying the knots or anything like that. No, not even close. But I will say I am very straightforward with my communication. So like I let people know. The issue that sometimes people they lose themselves. They get disillusioned by their own, like opinions, their own changes. Like they create these expectations in their head, or they kind of like they create expectations that you're going to change or there's something there, even though you clearly stated that that's not the case, and then they get disappointed, and then they blame it as your fault, even though you're very clearly stating the things. Well, I will say that I am open to experiences, so there are things that I have never tried before that I am willing to try, but I will say that I do relate to the part of like needing a little space, because if it gets too claustrophobic, I just want to tap out basically. Sevens can be instituted as Jews as possessive, manipulative, playing on their guilt or insecurities to make sure that sevens does not stray. Further, sevens need to be the center of attention as a way of staying energized and excited. Oh, that's the first time I read about this. Other people and their needs are not really the focus of their concern as much as they are an audience of potential playmates if others can keep up with them in their fast pace. I kind of relate to this a little bit. While making the seven the center of attention generally suits Jews for a while, Jews eventually begin to unconsciously feel used. They will either withhold their attention and affection or start to compensate in other ways, such as by overreacting or having reimagined health problems as a way of forcing the seven to pay attention to their needs. A stalemate occurs and punctuated by conflicts, battles, and love scenes. Okay, now let's go 3. That is one I have a little more affinity with. Try to read, type 9 right away so we can because I'm gonna end that, and then type 8, which is close, which is mine. So there's that. Enneagram type 7, enthusiastic. Enneagram type 9, the peacemaker. What types brings to the relationship? Enneagram 7s and 9s are one of the most often seen pairings of the types, because they bring a good mix of similar and positive opposite qualities. Fundamentally, 7s and 9s are both positive outlook types who are optimistic, upbeat, and who prefer to avoid conflicts and negatives in their lives and in their relationship. Both types are friendly, sociable, and generally happy with themselves and with their lives. Neither is typically introspective or brooding, preferring to get on with things rather than to look backward or stew over failures or disappointments. Both are able to forgive and forget. Yeah, I'm not able to forgive and forget, and to make the best of their limitations, wherever they might be. They might be separated physically or have few financial means, but 7s and 9s can make the best out of circumstances and continue to build their future together. Both tend to be practical, although both have a romantic trait and a physicality that adds to the spice of their relationship. Both also often funny and can make even the most mundane events pleasurable and pleasant. 7s provide the stimulation, 9s the audience. On the complementary opposite side, 7s are more active and self-assertive than 9s. They tend to take initiative, to make plans, to have multiple interests, and to provide energy for the couple. 7s are mentally quick, self-confident, curious, open to new experiences, and resilient when there are setbacks. They bring the fun, sparkle, and sense of adventure. 9s bring the sense of steadiness, support, and acceptance to the relationship. They tend to be more sympathetic or soft-hearted than 7s, as well as more relaxed and undemanding of themselves and of the environment, including other people. 9s are often generous and willing to make personal sacrifices to help others and to make them happy. Their personal simplicity and complicatedness meshes with the more assertive qualities of 7. As long as neither takes advantage of the other, there is a good balance between energy and relaxation in this couple. What I noticed between these types, I don't know what you call them. 9, 1, and 2, which are the ones that are like the farthest away from like me, from my type, and from like where I relate to these things. There is always like the support aura. They're all like supporting like the 7. They are kind of like bringing some type of calm, some type of balance to their lives, and that is an interesting, I guess, couple. Although I will say that it's not as exciting like this type so far. They're the contingency that I want to read or watch or play. It's just, yeah. One of the main areas of potential problems is the fact that neither 7s or 9s are usually adept at working through negative or painful aspects of their lives or their relationship. Yeah, this is an interesting one because I feel like I might have regressed when I was younger. I think I was a little more resilient in some ways, but it wasn't like a healthy resilience. I was just very stubborn, and I wouldn't allow for certain things to happen. So I wouldn't allow myself to feel and process certain things. So it felt like like after that, right now I'm going back to like a certain balance. But when I started my therapy back in 2022, I was targeting my traumas. There was a lot of how I put it, a lot of like me feeling very vulnerable, me being very vulnerable in a way I hadn't been before, which depending on how you look at things, it feels like a regression of your character. But right now when I look back, I see that that's not really the case. I had to kind of like, there was a wound that had kind of like festered bacteria and stuff, so I had to kind of like open it again and remove everything kind of like out, so it could air out, and I could start to heal. So now I am healed, but in the process of like getting to the point, I'm healing still, but like in the process of getting here, there was a lot of like me not really wanting to deal with negative situations or painful things. Like it was just it affected me a lot. There's a lot of affectation too. So that was that. But like right now, I seem to be moving towards like a better place mentally, where I am, where these things, they don't necessarily bother me as much. It's a process, but it's one that it has started, and like the start, it feels like a regress, like a regression, as I said. But eventually you realize like you have to take a step back so you can take a step forward. And both will prefer everything we kept on the positive side. Neither one wants to fall into the possibility of depression or otherwise cut off their chances of happiness. At most, they will briefly acknowledge the problem or conflict in their relationship by blaming the other. Both times tend to become anxious, critical, and edgy when under stress, taking these things out on someone else rather than working through the negative feelings themselves. Both times also tend to be blind to their own share of responsibility for how the relationship has deteriorated, including their own contribution to communication problems. Nines tend to collapse in the face of Seven's angry demands, withdrawing into silence and eventually inaction. They become increasingly unable to make sense of the Seven's grievances, so they become stubborn and shut down further, with occasional outbursts of anger and anxiety or both. Of the two types, sevens are far more equipped to talk about whatever is bothering them than nines, although it does not mean that sevens are necessarily more able to face what is really bothering them, much less resolve it. Sevens tend to impulsively say whatever comes to mind and to fall into excoriating verbal abuse of the nine whenever the seven feels frustrated. Sevens often feel that the nine is too checked out and responsive to them. Nines seem perpetually indecisive, slow, and ineffectual. Sevens' criticisms outright contempt for their responsiveness to the nines only makes nines retreat further from them and disengage from the situation. However, sevens often feel that they cannot help themselves, and their honesty demands that they tell the nine that how unhappy they are with them. One of the steadiest and most carefree couples can become one of the most helplessly tortured if they become unwilling or unable to really talk with each other. So that is an interesting thing. I'm thinking about like the bluntness, that they're mentioning about seven just saying what is in their minds, and I do relate to that. But I would say that I think I have become better at kind of like reading the room, not necessarily reading the room, but like deciding when I was going to share things, because sometimes it's not helpful. It's not going to lead to anything. It's not going to make anything better. Particularly when you're in anger, like even like things that can be true or constructive. When you say them in anger, like it is usually very counterproductive. So like waiting also for me to just say the things at the appropriate time, or a more appropriate time, where by appropriate I don't mean like right or wrong. I mean just in a way that it can be more constructive. It can be more productive than just saying when you're angry and all that. Of course, there are sometimes when I'm like angry, I still like struggle a little bit with like holding back my tone, but I'm doing better. I'm learning. I'm more assertive. I think it's about that. I used to be more aggressive. So like now there's more assertion in the way I kind of like do things. As a consequence, I think that they're like it kind of like de-escalates, even if it doesn't de-escalate the conflict, it at least prevents it from like growing further. But of course, it depends on what you're talking about, because there are moments where I succeed, there are moments I don't, and I know that's that. So type 3, the achiever, with any other type 7, the enthusiast. What each type brings to the relationship. This is a highly complementary pair. Both types are self-assertive, have high energy and outgoing, and capable of being proud of being around people with relative ease. But is that me? Is that me? It doesn't seem so. I will say that kind of yes, it depends on the context. I was thinking about this, because I feel like generally speaking, when I was younger, a lot of my social interactions, they were kind of, when you're a teenager, these are kind of cringe. But I'm not saying this in a demeaning way. It's just that I'm kind of like, there were some things that I should look back at and I used to be embarrassed. Not so much anymore, but right now I just look at it and it's just like, me being a teenager, that kind of like happens. That it's kind of it's part of life, it's part of like growing, because I also was not the only embarrassing teenager out there. I think we all were at some point or another. But basically what I'm trying to say is that I was thinking about this actually yesterday, when I was like, when was the last time I felt like embarrassed about some social interaction I was a part of? I've been part of like awkward interactions that were kind of like not particularly smooth, but I feel like the element of embarrassment is really escaped me for the past the past few years, maybe even more. And the same way that I've been able to look back at things and no longer feel like no longer cringing anything, I also look back at the more recent situations and being like, yeah, it's not cringe, even if it wasn't great, even if it wasn't smooth, as I said. But I was thinking about one that it did actually get me to be embarrassed. It was yesterday in my Zumba class. We had this little dynamic thing, and towards like the end of the class, where there's a song about broom, broom that used to clean things, and basically the teacher got us like a broom, and then teacher, call her teacher or instructor, or she's a physical educator. She's our physical educator. And everybody had to dance a little bit of different, different, steps and all that. And I honestly was embarrassed when it came my turn. Like I did it once, but it was the end of the song, so I had to wait the song start again so I can do it again. And it's not necessarily like my steps; it's just that like I don't know. I feel in that environment, I don't want to expose myself. I guess I feel situations like this, they make me feel exposed, and that is not, like what I want. But so basically the point I'm trying to make is that I can be kind of outgoing and have and forward, but depending on the context. I think has to be a certain element of familiarity with it. If I'm with like a friend and we are meeting I'm meeting like my friend's friends, like I think maybe because of the connection, I don't feel like, I just am more myself, I guess. While if I was just, let's say I'm like in some event, in a convention or something, I wouldn't just go out to somebody and say something to them. And most people wouldn't. Like usually like there's an element of familiarity that you want to have before you kind of like expose yourself like that. So my point is that I can be outgoing, but it's not like my primary trait. Usually if I have something to do, like I have something I have to get something done, like usually I can, just approach people out of the blue. People who, like, I have apparently no connections, there's no kinship, no nothing. But but just for like my leisure, not so much. Yeah. Both types bring optimism, a future orientation, a sense of possible future orientation. Type 7, really. The sense of possibility and renewal to their relationships and to meet their prizes they become involved with. Traits can work along more easily than 7s, although both are stimulated by interacting with people, and both can be excellent communicators of their ideas and values. I think I'm an excellent communicator of my ideas and values, something that like my mental health professional I ever worked with has said about me. So I think I can communicate what's on my mind really well, but I wouldn't say that I'm stimulated by interacting with people. So yeah, half in the bag. Both are persuasive and articulate, often lively and attractive, making them sought after company. Both have youthful orientations, such as they feed off each other's energy. No other couple is as vivacious or gregarious as the 3-7 couple. This is probably the highest energy combination of types, and they wholeheartedly engage in lots of activities, plans, and projects, with the emphasis of attaining a good life. The focus is on the sociability, going out, having adventures together, and on realizing possibilities and on finding personal fulfillment. So this makes trees being sensitivity to people and how to communicate with them, and a sense of propriety, appropriateness, and social conventions, as well as the ability to focus on goals and get them accomplished. 7s bring a sense of fun and adventure, resilience, and not being overly concerned with failure. 7s can be spontaneous in ways that are helpful to more self-conscious trees. 7s bring breadth of knowledge and experience, boundless enthusiasm, and good spirits. 3s bring a focus on goals, on staying practical and grounded, and on observing healthy limits. This can be fun, articulate, generous, spirit, virtually speaking with vitality and the joy of life. This can sometimes seem to others to be an almost magical couple. Sure, nothing to add here, I guess. Potential trouble spots for issues. This is also an extremely volatile couple. There's almost too much electricity under one roof. A 3-7 pair always looks like a great couple, but this can also mean having to live up their own hype. They can be exhausting to keep up with, and their mutual qualities make it difficult to admit or look at problems. They both feel the pressure to be fabulous and perfect, even perfect all the time. Both types seem to lighthearted and unconcerned, yet in their high energy routines, they often hurt each other's without realizing. I think it's just each other. Often this results in a backlog of past hurts that have been suppressed until it's too late and too much damage that has been done. Interesting enough, like this kind of reminds me of my relationship with my parents when I was younger, because there was like a lot of hurt there, a lot of like pain. Because a lot of this, it was only my parents indirectly doing it. It's just that they offered, like they supported the church I was brought up, and the church has caused me a lot of pain. There's a lot of trauma there, but they supported. They at least silently supported. Yeah, like they didn't contradict the church. Basically, their presence there made sure that like they were supporting it. So there was like a lot of like little things here and there that I didn't really bring up, and until I kind of like exploded. I would explode sometimes, And it wasn't until like I started actually doing my trauma back in 2021, in 2025, so it's been 4 years now. So things are going out really well. We're all doing great. But it was kind of like one of like the things that was happening. I kind of like there was this little slight, little something, and it built into something. And it wasn't until I started to explore my trauma, and that I was actually able to heal when we're able to overcome those things. Depending on their level of health, trees can become workaholics, completely focused on achieving success, building more prestige, and planning career moves with the care of a general. So much so that relationship and family life takes us distinct to second place, if that. By contrast, sevens tend to not take their career seriously as trees, always feeling that if things do not go well in one job, they can move on to something. I'm kind of like, in between these two types, I think right now I'm like a healthy level of like, I'm happy dose of both of this, although like I might be more inclined, in the seven, but when I was younger, I was very much like, this is the path I'm gonna take, this is my life, this is my future, my career, and I didn't want to kind of, I didn't want to, like in any circumstances, change or pivot. Eventually, it did happen, and it was really the best thing that happened to me. But it still took me a little while. But like the thing about having the care of a career moves as with the care of a general, I relate to this, not so much these days, but when I was younger, that was kind of like the way I did things. Better. On the surface, trees seem to have as much self-confidence as sevens. In reality, they do not, which is why they feel the need to promote themselves and their accomplishments. Trees may be envious of the success of sevens, while sevens may feel that too much fun and enjoyment is being sacrificed to the tree's focus on career. Sevens may get the feeling that they only exist to prop up the tree in various ways. The other type wants to talk about their shortcomings, failures, or negative feelings, and so these topics tend to be avoided as long as possible. Often, either a health or career crisis will bring things to the surface. Sevens do not want to be trapped in relationships that is no longer enjoyable. Trees do not want to be in a relationship that it has failed. Once they have the doubt that the other is there for them, they turn towards self-centered attitudes, which further erode the relationship. A breaking comes abruptly and be permanent. I guess there is some truth to that. We're gonna read type 6 now. The thing about being one relationship is funny. As I said before, like I am not the most experienced with proper relationships. Most of my interactions, they're kind of like happen on a casual basis, regardless of what like the intentions are. So I have to think about, when I say relationship, I'm not meaning just sexual or romantic or anything. I'm thinking about like everything, and I have a few. They're like constructive, they're helpful, and they exist as more than one dimension in my life. But most everything else is like that. So it is an interesting way for me to just look at things and be like, am I just enthusiastically doing things? Will I, will this kind of like come crumbling down? Because so far, a little distance is present, and sometimes a lot of distance is present in my interactions with people, and I think that keeps things fresh. Like it helps me not feel overwhelmed or undermined by just to like this very thick interactions. That's not the right word, but if you're very clustered, bit of a clusterfuck of interactions that makes me feel claustrophobic. So it's good to avoid that. So type 6 and type 7. Type 6 is the loyalist, type 7 is the enthusiast. What each type brings to the relationship. Both Enneagram 6s and 7s are mental types, and there can be a great deal of mental stimulation in this pairing. These two types offer many areas in which they reinforce each other, and some areas in which the strengths of one counterbalance the limitations of the other. Sevens are usually entertaining and tend to lift the spirits of 6s. Both are quick mentally and often have rapier wits. They enjoy bantering with each other, verbally sparring and seeing how absurd and funny they can become as they push each other to more outrageous limits. This sounds fun. This sounds fun. Limits. Sevens are particularly good at generating new ideas, while 6s are particularly good at mastering the practical steps that are necessary to get things done. The good ideas thing, like I have, even if it's just in terms of my writing, I have new ideas every day. My fantasies are ideas. They're kind of like, they're not, things I'm writing, I'm gonna write them, but like they do have ideas, they contain possibilities. Okay, sevens help sixes put fear and limitation into perspective and sometimes to move beyond them. Thus, they thus make an effective team, effective team members in which the seven lays out the big picture and gets people excited about new possibilities, while the six moves in with the logistical and tactical know-how, following follow-throughs and with details. In intimate relationships, the same balance pertains. Sevens are the stimulators, sixes are the regulators, and they can keep each other moving forward by allowing the other to counterbalance their own limitations. This sounds interesting, very for like parenting, you know, have one that's a stimulator or a regulator. I would definitely not want to be the regulator. I mean, not that I couldn't be. I think I can have a strong pulse when it's necessary. Sometimes even when it's not necessary. But you know, I'd rather have fun. So no, that's pretty much what I mean by this. So this visionary functionary makes sixes bring commitment and loyalty to the seven, often expertise and groundedness. The sevens comes to trust and rely on implicity, as well as a strong grip on reality when more can be accomplished within given parameters. Sevens bring a driving sense of optimism and possibility, high energy, a sense of adventure, and fearlessness with regard to failure. They can teach sixes how to be resilient and how not to fear the future, while sixes can teach sevens the difference between optimism and pipe dreams. Interesting. Maybe I need, well, you know, six in my life. I mean, it's not that I can say like I can. It's just that sometimes I kind of low-key refuse to. You know, I'm enjoying my bullshit. Sometimes enjoying your bullshit is, you know, the best part of the day. But you know, something I'm noticing here, interestingly, is the thing about the future, because as I talked about before, I actually be more affected by it, you know, like my failure and all that, and that's no longer the case. I become kind of like the opposite of what I was when I was younger, which is great, because you know, feeling failure is a horrible way to live, because it freezes you and prevents you from actually living like your best life, and you know, just doing everything in the way that, you know, it's kind of like the best way, because you know, if you're feeling failure, you're kind of like discounting possibilities, and you are, you know, ignoring certain things. I mean, you know, you're just like overextending. You're kind of like overhyping certain things in your reasoning, and with that, you kind of like, you don't always make the best moves. So potential privilege spots and issues. Despite how well sixes and sevens can reinforce each other's strengths, and when they are healthy in the average strengths, when they're healthy in the average to lower levels, the picture can shift quickly. Sixes are essentially interested in security and predictability, foreseeing problems and building procedures and to prevent future uncertainty. They are aware of limitations in one and why things cannot be done, or at least done easily. Sevens, by contrast, are all about seeking happiness and relief for increasing frustration and anxiety. They are all about trying new things, seeing new possibilities, and overcoming limitations. They do not want to hear about problems or obstacles. They want things to be done the day before yesterday. Sixes tend to be negative and pessimistic, while sevens tend to be positive and optimistic. This is a kind of like feels like a reflection of my older self and my newer self, although like I still wouldn't call myself, you know, optimistic. You know, like I think that maybe like you have like pessimistic, optimistic, and I say you have realistic here in the middle. So I used to be here thinking that was realistic. I think I might be here and, you know, a little, you know, like more to the side, a little bit more to the optimistic side, but not in a way that is bad for me. Not in a way that I'm like delusional for the most part. Sevens are future-oriented, while sixes tend to be aware of the past, of precedents, and the lessons of history that would prevent things from going badly again. Once again, this makes more like I used to be more stuck in the past. Right now, I'm more, you know, in the present. I'm in the present first and foremost, you know, just enjoying the moment. And then, you know, if I have to think about something, I'm thinking of the future. No longer the past. Sixes very much want to find someone with whom they can have a long-term commitment. Sevens tend to be fearful of long-term commitments and enter them into somewhat reluctantly. I mean, I never even entered a long-term commitment. I mean, like in friendships, you know, like you kind of like are there, but like you don't really know that. You know, I mean, some of my friendships like have been going on for like many years, so you know, there's a long-lasting effect to that. But you know, it wasn't necessarily kind of like the goal when I started. You know. You kind of like see where it goes. Commitment. Fearful. Sixes then should feel that sevens are too hedonistic, selfish, extravagant, and when the chips are down, they wonder if they can be relied on. Yeah, I have had been perceived like all those things, particularly the whole can be relied on. But I don't know. I think I rely on myself, and you know things are working fine for me so far. But it's one thing for me to rely on myself and for other people to rely on me. I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes I straight up tell people like today is not a day for you to rely on me because you know I have these moods, I have these changes of pace. So you know like depending on where I am at, you can trust me. Depending on it, you shouldn't, or you should at least like you know keep me at arm's length. You know, what will they skip off to someone? Will they skip off to someone else or avoid their responsibilities in some form of escapism or addiction? Sevens feels tend to feel that sixes are too anxiety ridden, worry too much, and make themselves and everyone else crazy, raising every question and objection before trying anything. Oh yeah, I can see not as the six here, but I'm just seeing myself in relation to other people, and like that was the dynamic. Yeah, I think I'm more just throwing myself into inaction these days. Sixes oppose everything, or at least at first, and get distrustful and suspicious. This is low key reminds me of my dad, like not super, but the thing about you know opposing everything at first before you know rethinking it and reconsidering it, or and the part of you know just people feeling crazy around him because he's just raising too many you know like things that they are kind of like anxiety coded. Stressful. Jackson seeks both everything at least at first and gets stressful and suspicious easily. They live a life of limits and rules. The sevens a few restrictions largely imaginary and self-imposed. In a 6-7 couple, these two opposing philosophies reflect the very different expectations sixes and sevens have. Sixes and sevens, there should be an X then. Have from life and from relationship, and unless they can be reconciled, it will be difficult for this couple to remain one. Okay, so now I'm gonna go with 4, then 5, 7, 8. Okay, so let's go with 4. 4 is the individualist and 7 is the enthusiast. What each type brings to their relationship. Enneagram 4s and 7s tend to be intrigued by each other since they're generally a case of opposites attracting. 4s tend to be quiet, introverted, self-doubting, emotional, and pessimistic, while 7s tend to be outgoing, introverted, self-confident, mental, and optimistic. 7s help 4s be able to overcome shyness and a possible reluctance to try new experiences. 4s help 7s stay focused on what really want and to respect and allow their feelings. 4s and 7s bring to the relationship the charge and mystery of their differences, that they think so differently, react so differently, and find pleasure in such different ways. They can also therefore become intrigued by the other, finding him or her endlessly fascinating, always ready with something new or unexpected. So I am more introverted. The quiet part, like it really depends on the context, you know. Like I have, but like as I talked about before, in contexts where I am, you know, somewhat comfortable, I would say that I can be outgoing, at least like within certain parameters, you know. So, but it's interesting because like in a certain way it feels like an interesting antithesis, you know, type 4 and type 7, because you know it was type 8 and type 5, type 7, and then type 4. And type 4 was below 90%, so it's not like as high there, but it was the number 4. Type 4 being number 4. So I do feel that there is a certain dichotomy here, and that it does represent, you know, myself. That you know, like it's just like two sides of the same coin, and that you know I am the coin. You know, so sometimes I'll be more outgoing, sometimes I'll be more retracted. I retract a lot more, and it's kind of like an ongoing thing. Because I feel like I move forward, not forward, but I move out, you know, a little bit, and then it's too much, and then I go back, and then I move in, and I'm back in. And then I keep going forth and backward and all that. But I am introverted, and I will say that I am self-confident, sometimes a little too much, as I've already mentioned. And I will say I'm more mental than emotional. And yeah, and you know, the optimistic, pessimistic thing is an interesting one, as I mentioned, because it's an interesting one because. This necklace, like it is a little too long. I have to kind of like figure out a way to, you know, like it's not gonna be so much of a choker, but you know, like it is too long, and it is not really laid the right way. So you know, I would say I think I'm a perfect mix of, you know, pessimistic and optimistic right now. So call me like a true realist, and not as I used to think that it was, realism was like basically pessimism. Sevens, like that. Both fours and sevens bring a capacity for joy and ecstasy, spontaneity, emotion, and for passion. Both fours and sevens live a lot of lively conversation, and they can pass hours sharing with each other detailed accounts of events of the day, as well as their thoughts and reactions. Both fours and sevens love the finer things of life: travel, good food, wine, clothes, and furnishings. And for better or for worse, both can tend to overspend their incomes on what they consider life's necessities: caviar, champagne, and another trip to Europe. They both have a love of the new and a sense of adventure and romance that can keep their relationship fresh and lively for themselves and to be a source of joy and inspiration for others. Both types can be funny, irreverent, and entertaining. There is also an earthiness and boldness to both, as well as paradoxically sophistication and elitism. Being opposites, fours and sevens can balance each other. Fours bring a sense of depth and interiority, while sevens contribute a sense of fun and emotional resilience. So I will say that the whole interiority thing, like, is this considered interiority? Because like for like since 2016, which has been like 9 years now, I've been recording these video journals, and they are kind of like these introspective moments that I have. I'm not really having them with other people because I kind of prefer to have them just by myself. But like, does this count as interiority? It might, yeah. But I will say that I'm not, caviar, champagne, and order to trip, like indulgent. But there is a certain indulgent in my lifestyle that he seems to have come and is here to stay. And I don't hate it. I just have to find balance. So I'm not overspending, as has been established, or I'm not ignoring certain other responsibilities. Potential trouble spots or issues. Also, like, I really like the idea of like despairing like 4 and 7. Like, I want to read even before I'm reading the trouble spots and issues. I want to read / watch / play. This dynamic. Like, I'm looking forward to this. It's really working for me. Because they are so different in many ways, fours and sevens must have several strong points of attraction, or else they will likely misconnecting with each other. Unless some strong passion, romantic, mental, or spiritual, keeps them together, they are likely to fly apart if there are any deep disagreements or conflicts early in the relationship. Both types tend to be impulsive and to be easily frustrated with others when they are disappointed, or if their life circumstances do not go as they expect. Once again, this reads as me when I was younger, but not so much these days. I think there's a certain type of, like, I guess, resilience that I have developed since then. But they being easily frustrated. Sometimes it's still the case, but like right now, I'm in a really good place mentally. My medication's working. I am doing well, and that's kind of that. Both have high expectations for the kind of attention or quality of interactions they want from others, and if they are not forthcoming, both tend to not give others too many second chances to prove themselves. While fours may admire and even secretly envy the seven's resilience and high energy, they may also find themselves worn out by their fast-paced lives and what feels to the fours like the seven's relentless plans and activities. Fours can see sevens just too noisy, superficial, insensitive, and occasionally coarse and insulting without realizing it. On the other hand, sevens may admire and try to imitate the four's artistic flair, creativity, and appreciation of subtlety and beauty. I think I have to, mimic it. I'm just joking. I've been struggling with my artistic side lately. I haven't really done, the thing I said, which was like to translate my novel. As I mentioned before, like, it turned out to be a bit of a hassle, but like it was like less engaging than I thought it was going to be, and that was kind of like the problem for me to get motivated. But I'm gonna go back to it, not today because I am I don't think I'll have the time. We're going out later today, so there's that. On the other hand, my mom just had to check on me. Admire and try to imitate the four's creativity and appreciate authority and beauty. But sevens can also see fours as hypersensitive, ineffectual, impractical, moody, and self-absorbed. So moody and self-absorbed, sure. Hypersensitive, I like to think not. It's just that my tendency a lot of times when things, I lose my sense of hope of things working out, of reality. I go down a little bit. In addition, if the relationship coarseness, wars usually become more withholding and hostile, sniping at the other from a safe distance. Sevens become more impatient, abrasive, and can be verbally abusive. Fours may want to talk about everything that has gone wrong with their relationship in great detail by 7. By contrast, 7s typically want to move on to something more promising and upbeat. I do relate to this. But the result is that underlying problems do not get resolved adequately. Once the relationship curves mutually, everything each admired and was attracted to in the other becomes irritating and insufferable. Okay, I don't want to move on, but I don't really deny the the things there due time for me to just process them and for us to really work them out. It's just that I want to do that. Let's do that quickly. Not quickly, not trying to hurry anything, but let's just get to it so we can then move on and find something more enjoyable, more fun. So type 4. So now we're gonna have do type 7, type 5. I'm gonna do type 5. So type 5, the investigator, type 7, the enthusiast. I've already read this, but in this context, let me just read this again. Since they're both thinking types, Enneagram 5s and 7s both bring a lot of mental energy and appreciation for ideas in their relationship. Their approach is complementary and reciprocal. Each one brings something that the other does not have. On the positive side, 5 brings depth, clarity of observation, insight into the objective state of affairs, independence and self-reliance, and often wonderfully offbeat, whimsical sense of humor. There's a lot of sense of humor with type 7s, what I'm observing. It almost goes without saying that they have quick minds and love of knowledge and intellectual pursuits. 7s bring quickness not only of mind but of spirit, ready to do almost anything at a moment's notice, from going to a movie to booking an around-the-world trip, from moving to furniture across the room to moving home to another state. 7s are independent, although they like to have a few people around and enjoying the fun, and to add to the celebratory, happy feeling that they are always looking for in their lives. They tend to be generous, extravagant, optimistic, gregarious, not going with strangers, often in the life of the party. So I do be like the whole independent thing. I think they're both independent. I do like, I think both 5s and 7s, they do have some core people they have, and so far so good. So far I do have some core people I spend time with, and there's that. So 5s tend to be somewhat more frugal with their money and resources, seldom spending much on themselves, unlike 7s. Once again, it reminds me of how I was in the past. When I was younger, I wasn't spending much, and how I am right now, really enjoying myself and enjoying life. And I'm gonna keep going because I found something. I found kind of the key to to life on earth, basically. You have to enjoy yourself as you're going, not just postponing the enjoyment. You have to have some of it when you're right now. So 5s also tend to be more private, taciturn around strangers, although they can be funny once they get to know them and they get to know you and feel secure. 5s ground and deepen 7s, giving them permission to take themselves and their interests more seriously, to focus their energies, and to stay with things until they pay off. 7s get 5s to try new experiences and to make more social contacts. They may also run interference for 5s in social settings. Both like conversation ideas, and they love to explore new routes together. In addition, there is a mixture of opposites with different attitudes about how to enjoy themselves and about how to be fulfilled in the world. 5s say life is short, don't expect too much. 7s say life is short, try it all. Both attitudes are true and can be useful balance of each other. This really reads, I think I said this the other time, as just me with myself. Same way with a little bit less 7 or 4. Because it's a little bit less me, but it's kind of this back and forth. I mean, it's less back and forth than 7 and 4, but it feels like this, because this is talking about 2 people, right? One person doing that for the other, but I feel like my brain does that in itself. I can part of me, part of 5 pulls into the side, and then 7 part pulls into the other, and then I find myself to be in a good balance. 5s tend to minimize their needs, so potential trouble spots or issues. 5s tend to minimize their needs and their expectations of life, particularly whenever they are under more stress. They tend to see things in terms of scarcity and being personally unprepared to meet the demands of the world. The result is that as pressures on them increase, 5s tend to withdraw and detach emotionally from everyone around them, and ultimately even from themselves. They become more reclusive, isolated, embodied minds who are difficult to break through, much less to engage with in constructive action. This pattern is very difficult for 7s who are into quick actions, and having multiple escape routes is the norm. As pressures increase on them, 7s go into hyperdrive, going more places, doing more things, talking more, getting more advice, gossiping about their relationship problems, and possibly turning to substance abuse to control their mounting anxiety and sadness. These problems only make 5s withdraw further and become frigid, or someone who they see as out of control. It's interesting because the more I read about the type in this context, I'm like I'm kind of over this. To be honest, like I don't think that is me. Particularly because even when I do I retract into myself, I feel communicative with people around me of like where I am mentally. It's important to do that. So I'm not completely isolated. I'm interacting. I'm reaching out. I'm just retracting, but I'm reaching out still. Uh, in the lower levels, fives can see sevens as too escapist, superficial, intrusive, and coarse. The sevens want the fives to be more fun, so their experience will be more positive. Sevens embarrass fives by being too effusive and glib. On the other hand, sevens think fives are cold and unresponsive. Conflicts with each other's styles make both dig their heels. Sevens become more demanding and pushy, whereas fives become more withdrawn and cooperative. Sevens may act out to get the fives' attention, but they may go too far, causing fives to close the door. A lack of trust and difficulty in finding safe common ground to work out differences makes things worse, and both types tend to make extreme well-defended positions. This could be an interesting thing to conflict, interesting dynamic to consume. I think the isolated part. Yeah, this could be interesting. It reminds me somehow of like Bella's Swan in New Moon when Edward leaves and she is just really into herself. It can, depending on how you do it, it can be kind of like an engaging and interesting, but you can make it, everything can be made interesting basically. It just depends on how you do it. So now it's type 7 with type 7, 1, 4, type 7 with type 8. I did all the above relationships, 2 and 7 generally bring the same qualities to each other. Okay, I'm going to be type 8 first. Because I already read this, but let's go again. Both Enneagram 7s and 8s are highly assertive, independent, and strong-willed. Both types resist to being controlled, not limited by authorities or even by internal psychological mechanisms. When someone or even some inner voice says not, do not. Both 7s and 8s respond with defiance and the desire to push their limits, however they may be. Yeah, this is something I mentioned that I do relate to. I know, maybe. Both types are practical, this world-oriented, and not necessarily worldly or materialistic, but concerned with concrete affairs and finding happiness and fulfillment in here and now. Neither likes to postpone their satisfaction or to settle the vague promises about the future. Both types will overspend their budget on a bountiful lifestyle that is a source of pleasure for themselves and of their friends and family. They love to entertain and offer the best there is to others as a sign of their generosity and as a signal of their success and standing in the world. Both are highly energy people, often gifted with vitality and gusto for life that is noteworthy. A 7-8 couple can get a tremendous amount done, and are often revitalized by staying active. I relate to this as well. They are both adventuresome and are willing to try new things in their relationship. They are also both extremely outspoken and do not hold themselves back from voicing their opinions or making their needs known. The 7s bring more lightness and a sense of fun and excitement, trying to do something new and are different for the sake of keeping things fresh and stimulating. They are both usually and more talkative of the two. 7s are usually highly engaged storytellers and raconteurs, turning their adventures and catastrophes into entertaining tales. 8s are usually surprisingly more reserved and moody than is recognized, and they rely on the 7 to light up the atmosphere and to make their practical affairs more fun and enjoyable. 8s also bring directness, decisiveness, and a willingness to face difficult situations with determination and persistence. This feels like I have a 5 here, I have a 7 here, and I have an 8 here. It feels somewhere like in the middle. I think I never really considered, like if I was a 7 for being an 8, it was always like, it's either, 8 or 5. But there's a lot, that I relate to here. And this, particular, the combined one is an interesting one because I'm, seeing the patterns, you see like the things are in common. And I'm like, okay, sure, this is me with me. Now I'm going to see the problems, so I'm going to be able to create a distance between them. So potential productive spots or issues. While a 7-8 couple can be extremely productive, high energy pair, problems may begin if constructive outlets that energy are thwarted. Where the energy are thwarted or misguided. 7s and 8s both tend to find positive outlets for their prodigious energies and interests, and if they do not, they will inevitably discover destructive ways of releasing them. They also, always a risk, but it's interesting to bring it to attention. They may also begin to turn against each other or bring each other down in a kind of dark collusion that can have tragic consequences for them both. Both 7s and 8s are extremely strong-willed and independent, and so both resist being controlled by the other, often taunting the other with their lack of influence over that. This is something I did when I was younger. I like to think I don't do that so much anymore. Of course, like I always, sometimes you get into the unhealthy levels, but like in the healthy levels, like I'm not doing that anymore. Eights tend to be authoritarian and bullying, ordering the seven around and making threats if they are disobeyed. Sevens will attempt to avoid being controlled and can become highly insulting and contemptuous of the eights' heavy-handed tactics. Both types will flaunt the other's inability to have their way, as if their defiance were a badge of honor. Both types can be extremely selfish and self-centered, feeling that the world revolves around them and their desires. Of course, this builds in the likelihood of conflicts. Yeah, like I will say, I will admit that this is also me. I cannot just, say like this is me and the good things, but the selfish and self-centered part. Yeah. Both types can also be verbally crude and insulting, frequently saying things that other types might only occasionally allow themselves to think. Their fights can be gargantuan brawls and public scenes in which physical abuse and violence may also play a significant part. The problem is, however, that both types tend to be addicted to excitement and adrenaline and the rush and the reckless behavior. Yeah, that's the part that I like, and I low key. Not really, but low key. One for me. That would be excitement, physical violence, problems, addicted to excitement, and the adrenaline rush of reckless behavior. Once they begin to build their relationship on a certain level of physical excitement, whether it is from sexuality or violence, it is difficult for this couple to turn back to something more moderate. Anything less than being deaf, defiant seems like lifeless and boring. They may, however, push their limits once too far, and with tragic consequences not only for their relationship but for everybody around them. So. Yeah, exciting. Joking. Anyways, so now I'm gonna read 7 times type 7, which is the last one, and I'm excited because this is usually these type ones, the same types, like they're kind of fun. Or type relationship. As with all double type relationships, 2 Enneagram 7s generally bring the same qualities to each other. Therein lies both a main source of attraction as well as one of the main pitfalls. Thus, the level of health of each person is especially important for these types of relationships, as they are their dominant instincts. The key characteristics of double 7 relationships are easy to spot: high energy, spontaneity, frequent travel and entertaining, and an interest in anything new or that promises to open new possibilities. If both 7s are psychological, healthy, and well balanced, there is a noteworthy joyousness and sense of abundance that permeates their relationship and which spills out to everyone around them. A healthy double 7 relationship is empathetically happy, even radiant and exuberant, and both parties enjoy sharing their happiness with as many others as possible. They are thoughtful, sensitive, and very idealistic, hospitable, and generous. Double 7 couples are socially unusually good company. Unusually good company for others as much as they are with each other. Something I'm thinking of right now is like because you can have 2 different types, but they have different rings. Like that is an interesting thing that I like to see explored. I like to consume that story. Seeing how these differences they make or break the relationship, and how seeing them happening live. They're both the same type, but have a different ring. Each brings to the relationship a spirit of personal freedom that is noteworthy. Neither one should be tied down in routines or empty formal commitments, and so both 7s are determined not to impose many rules or expectations on the other. They want their relationship to be guided by the fact that both parties positively want to be with the other rather than feeling that they are locked into some constricting set of obligations. Both 7s bring a sense of possibility, open-endedness, experimentalism, and realism that enables them to build a life together while making an enjoyable experience for themselves and their circle of family and friends, while making an enjoyable experience for themselves and circle of friends. The double 7 parents are optimistic and resilient, and often I got distracted there. I'm reading, but my head's somewhere else. Always ready to pick themselves up and to start over again when they run into difficulties. Gratitude for their relationship and for finding each other is the guiding spirit. Potential trouble spots or issues. Building relationship usually takes time spent together, and patience to weather the disappointments or disillusionments that are also usually part of the picture. One of the main problems with double 7 relationships is that they have impatience, or wanting the relationship to be more complete and developed than it is. While double 7 parents have no lack of energy and high expectations for their relationship, they may be finding difficult to stay with both themselves and the other, as both work through the growing pains of the relationship. As time goes on and the relationship is no longer the stimulating experience it once was, 7s begin to turn their attention elsewhere, possibly to their work or to other involvements. Both 7s feel that somewhere in the world exists a perfect person for them. Both 7s are terrified of missing out. Both 7s feel that somewhere in the world exists the perfect perfect person for them. I don't subscribe to this idea. But sevens are terrified of missing out on whatever in life they are meant to have. This is interesting because I also relate to this more when I was younger. I think that I've been able to create kind of like an environment for myself that like I'm not feeling like I'm missing out. There's no FOMO. I think there was like a lot of FOMO when I was younger. I was in high school, and my first years after high school, there was like a lot of I want to be doing all the things. I want to be seeing all the things, because if I don't, I'm missing out. And then there was a lot of anxiety that was involved in this process, and I think I was finally able, as time passed, to create like a reality in which that I'm trying everything and I want to be open to everything, but if I miss something, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's not like I missed like the key opportunity of my life, because that's something that I used to fear, that I was very much that I was missing out on, not only on like good experiences, but on like the key to my future, the thing to unlock my future, like that was something that was kind of constantly there. Sevens, they hate the feeling that by committing themselves to one thing, whether it is one person, one place to live, or one career, they are limiting their life in some fundamental way. In short, sevens tend to be commitment adverse, and it is a measure of their psychological health when they can commit relatively easily and permanently to someone. So that's interesting, because I also think that it's a sign that I'm doing like much better mentally, that I can commit to things, because I used to be very commitment avoidant, as they're saying. Like I was kind of scared of commitments of any sort, and it was a problem. It was way past crossing the threshold of like that being kind of like an issue. But I'm very doing very well now, where I can commit to things regardless of what they are, and not feel like overwhelmed by all the possibilities that there are out there. In a double seven relationship, this problem is compounded, and one of the sevens must be the first to risk commitment and possible rejection. Ooh, that's scary for sevens. Another problem for double seven relationships is that both tend to be impulsive and irreverent, often saying and doing whatever brings relief in the heat of the moment. During arguments, things are said which cannot be unsaid, and feelings may be irreparably hurt by either. Both can be insensitive and self-centered and unreliable. Both tend to crave constant stimulation, which can lead to hectic social life, kind of like me, my life in general. This can be exciting if both parties do things together, but if they begin to have separate interests in different sets of friends, their social lives will put them apart. They may begin to feel to have little time for each other or for their family. Someone is bound to feel left out, or on some level, each seven is determined that it will not be him, not be them. Okay, so basically, I just finished reading all the compatibility. I usually do it in twice and 2 times, so this one is kind of long. And I didn't think that I was a type 7, although there are lots of things that I relate to. But that's the thing about relating to things. Like there is a lot to relate to. Like I think each type I get a little something, but as long as I'm not, because I think that I made a decision, and I think that this decision being made is kind of okay for everything else to kind of like happen, because for me to relate to everything else, because I'm not really saying like I'm this type and this type and this type and that type. And yes, I was very much either like a 5 or an 8, but that doesn't really mean I don't know. I guess like that is a certain level, not just indecisiveness. It's just that they both rang true. But like right now, I think that I'm like in a more steadier place, in a mentally stable place. And that's why I can look at these different types and be like, okay, this used to be me, this is me right now, this is more me than this one, and now I made a choice, and that choice is, I don't know, I think that by reading this, I read, the type 7, type 8, there was not really a whole lot of like insight, possibly because I've already read it, but I do think that by reading this, I'm like, yes, there's some things that are similar, there's some things that are not, and that's kind of like how it is, because it was the third most common, most compatible I was with, type 7. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be reading anymore for now. I think I decided that for now I'm not. I decided to finish reading the misidentification, which is usually some of the most interesting ones. But yeah, but there's a lot of this, and it just confirms at the very least that my wing is a 7. I never really had any doubt that it was going to be 7, mostly because like 9 is just so different from me. But like now I can look at it and be like, hey, this is 7 because it is similar. This is the one that I have. So yeah, that's kind of it. Anyways, bye.